Welcome to Celebrity Catwalk. I'm your host, Stephanie Matera. Today I have a very special guest with me. For those Celebrity Catwalk loyalists, you might recognize her. Her name is Bailey Schroeder. She's a serial entrepreneur. We had her on the show previously to talk about Rescue Walk, which we'll talk about again for those of you who are tuning in for the first time. But we're also going to talk about her newest invention, Petcademy. So here she is to tell us more.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. Thanks for coming back to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh, wonderful. So just to kind of touch on what Rescue Walk was. So you really love animals and you really realize that, you know, there's over 3.2 million animals in the U.S. shelters and about half of them find homes. And so I feel like that could be what's really driving you to come up with these really creative solutions, right, to drive adoption rates, but also solve social needs. So can you talk a little bit about the Rescue Walk app?
Totally. So started Rescue Walk back in 2015, which
Wow.
seems like...
I was an early adopter, by the way. I used to power walk and raise money all the time.
I remember, and you were in some of our videos as well.
That's right.
Yeah, you were in some of our videos. Amazing. So as you remember, Rescue Walk was a mobile app, or actually still is a mobile app. It's being run by Best Friends Animal Society.
Incredible.
Yeah, and so the way that the app works is that a pet parent downloads the app. They say, I want to walk today in support of the Humane Society of New York, for example. They go for a walk, and then Rescue Walk makes a donation to the Humane Society of New York based on how far the person walked.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was a very, very simple idea. We were very lucky to get the levels of adoption that we got, and we had about 100,000 people across the US and Canada using the app and walking on a daily basis. So it was a very amazing experience for me, and so you
lucky. Launched it in 2015, scaled it, and then when did Best Friends acquire it?
Best Friends took over the app in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really quick for someone to launch a concept and scale it that quickly, and then to have it taken on. For those of you who are not familiar with Best Friends Animal Society, I mean, really, they're like, for our world, they're like, I wouldn't compare them to like Macy's like level, you know, like they're animal rescue, you know, on steroids. Like it's totally incredible everything they're doing. They're trying to make the U.S. a no-kill nation by 2025. I think they'll do it, and you know, your app may be a big part of that. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I mean, I still have a very close relationship with Best Friends. Yeah, and so we have a lot of conversation just in terms of how they're using the app, how they're looking to leverage it to pair nicely with the on-the-ground walks that they already do.
Yeah, such as Strut Your Mutt.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's Strut Your Mutt. So I've been very fortunate to be part of those conversations.
Yeah.
And kind of getting those updates on how they're doing with their goal of becoming no-kill. And from what I understand, they're on track. So it's very exciting.
It's incredible. They've actually isolated to most of the euthanasia happening of healthy and treatable animals in about 7 states. And they have actually commissioned research in these states. And so it's incredible if we can move animals interstate.
Absolutely.
It's really going to help us get to that goal of no kill by 2025.
Oh my gosh, I totally agree. And one of the things that we've been talking about is just you have populations of dogs that have more behavioral problems, for example, than others. And it can be more challenging to get adopted because you need to get those dogs just a little more extra love and attention, we'll say, and having more patience to make that happen. And so with respect to Petcademy, the new platform that I've built and launched about 4 months ago, which is very much focused on providing pet parents with free access to behavioral advice and dog training.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so the goal is that by using this platform, we can hopefully provide these pet parents with affordable and high quality dog training to help keep animals out of shelters and rescues for behavioral issues.
Exactly, because that's the thing. I mean, there's a misnomer about, I think, shelter pets in general, that they come with, you know, more issues than maybe if you, we hope no one's buying dogs, we know people still are. You know, if you're going to a breeder, please let it be a responsible one. Absolutely, pets, you know, no pet stores, because we know they're not sourced responsibly. But you know, rescues are great animals, and the rescue groups know those animals. So what I found really interesting about your app, because I went in on the platform and looked at it a little bit, you have it working with not only the newly adopted parents, but you also do it on the rescue side. Can you kind of explain what the difference is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of taking a step back. So
Yes.
from a process perspective, basically what happens is the moment that the dog gets adopted, Pet Academy gets a notification.
Fabulous.
And based on that notification, along with a little bit of information that the rescue provides in terms of maybe the dog's behavioral past, information just how long they were in the shelter, what age is the dog, because you know how puppies obviously have some other things to learn versus more mature dogs.
Right.
And so yeah, so we get that information. With using that, we reach out to the pet parent and collect a bit more information, and based on that, we then can provide them with a customized program of recommendations of what they can do with their dog to help the dog successfully transition into the home. And so we really focus on those first 30 days to make that transition smooth.
Right.
And if a pet parent has a question, so for example, we got a lot of questions around just anxiety and how can we set up the space properly for my new dog, they can reach out to us, and one of our network of dog trainers, or a dog trainer in our network, will reach out and respond for free.
Incredible.
And so we've seen a lot of pet parents really utilizing this.
Yeah.
And we've had about 315 dogs so far kind of go through the program.
In just 4 months.
Yeah. So we've,
wow.
So it's been very, very interesting and learned a lot.
So would you call this the beta phase, or what would you call this?
Yeah, so I would definitely call it the beta phase. So we launched it in September with this goal of just getting feedback. So will rescues use it? Will they offer it to their pet parents? Do pet parents want it? And if they do want it, how are they using it? And so we've gotten a ton of feedback both from the rescue side and from the pet parent side as to what they want to build. So if you want details, I can give you a bit of the details in terms of what people are asking for.
I would love that, actually, and I think that would be helpful for our viewers.
Okay, perfect. So from a rescue perspective or a shelter perspective, you have different sizes of shelters and different sizes of rescues.
Good point.
So you have some that do 10 dogs a year, like very niche rescues that might specialize in chow chows, for example.
Yes, which I know you love.
And I love, yes. And then you have larger organizations that do thousands of dog adoptions a year. And so the needs of these two groups are very different.
Absolutely.
And so when we launched, the request to a rescue was, can you manually fill out a form providing information on the dog? And so for a 10 rescue group, a rescue that adopts out 10 dogs, this is not a problem. For someone like the San Antonio Humane Society, for example, who we work very closely with, they have 4,500 dogs a year. So it's very different. And so what we're working right now is being able to automate that process.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and we're really lucky because there's some amazing platforms, PetPoint being one of them, where it's the shelter management software. So working with them to be able to kind of connect in and automate that moment of dogs adopted. Instead of the shelter having to do something, we automatically get the information, can reach out to the pet parent, confirm they want to participate, and then give them that customized program.
So anything we can do to really, I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting that goes on in the shelters, and I know Texas is one of the highest kill states in the United States, and it has to do with volume. And so honestly, what you're doing could have life-saving implications on a grand scale. And I think it's great that you've identified that the needs of a shelter are going to be different. There's not a one-size-fits-all customized program. You have to really figure out what those nuances are.
Totally. Yeah, it's just been an amazing experience figuring that out, and and having partners like the San Antonio Humane Society who are very willing to have the conversation.
That's incredible.
And lucky. And one of the really interesting conversations we actually had last week was around, hey, we've had X number of dogs from the Humane Society go through the program. What can we do to help you guys action this information? And so the Humane Society essentially said to me, hey, can you tell us what are the most common questions that our adopters are asking, so that they can then take that feedback and build it back into their internal processes, so that the dogs, for example, if leash reactivity is very common, putting more emphasis on working on leash reactivity with the dog.
Within the shelter.
Yes, and then having the conversations with those pet parents about leash reactivity and things they can do proactively to help manage it. So that was really, really cool.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so much data to grab that really could help the shelters. I'd love to pivot for a second because, you know, there is a movement right now and it's social good, and millennials, and we're both millennials. I'm like on the cusp of a Gen Xer, but never, I'm going to pretend I didn't say that. But I completely skew, you know, as a millennial in terms of my values. And I believe, you know, that we have a responsibility how we shop, we vote with our dollars, there's all these different things. So for you, you're a millennial, right? You're coming up with this program that has a social good focus. It's obviously a for-profit. It's not a nonprofit, correct?
Correct.
Which is good. We need businesses too, right? Make revenue, but we're also solving a social problem. So how did you kind of navigate that? And then what made you pick this issue? Because there's so many issues. I love animals. I think they're super important. There's so many issues out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's also a very good question. So with respect to Rescue Walk, I developed that right after I had adopted my first dog, Charlie. And so
the black chow chow.
The black chow chow, yeah. And so that experience really opened my eyes to two basic things that I think rescues need, which is money and exposure.
Right.
And so with that app, it was very much focused on helping them raise money and then giving dogs exposure through the app and just enabling people to kind of come together to rally around animal rescue.
Right.
And then with respect to Petcademy, it's almost the same situation. So Charlie passed away a couple of years ago, which happens unfortunately.
I know, they don't live long enough.
No, but I adopted another chow chow named Harry, as I think I mentioned earlier.
Cute. He's orange, right?
He is orange. Yeah,
really
he's
cute.
orange and he's extremely saucy.
Well, chow chows are known for being saucy.
Yes, they are, and he is no exception to that. But when I got him, and he had like a lot of anxiety and just a lot of behavioral traits and kind of issues that we had to work through. And for me, I was very fortunate because I knew of School for the Dogs in New York, which is an amazing company, and actually we're partnered with them. They're working with us with Petcademy. So got to work with them and got a vet behaviorist.
Oh, wow.
To help really like craft a plan for how we could help Harry just feel better about the world. And like that experience, I was like, without that, I don't know how he would get to where he is today. And he's like doing amazing.
Well, that's the thing, because we think about them just going back to the shelter, and that's probably the worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
But they also might not be happy, right? Because the animals have a psyche, dogs have a psyche.
Yeah.
And so knowing how to work with him to get him to a place where the world isn't so scary.
Oh my gosh.
It's not only great for the human, but it's great for the dog.
Totally, and like you can see it in his face. I mean, we learn all these exercises, and it's little silly things, right? But he, as we keep practicing it, you can tell that he's having a good time. And so in these moments where we would walk down the street, and maybe in the past he would want to lunge at a dog, now he'll just look up to me because he knows I'm going to give him a treat.
Oh,
so it's like,
cute.
Yeah, I mean, positive reinforcement training is an amazing thing.
And it builds the trust and the bond between, you know, I'm not going to call you an owner because we're pet parents, right? So between the pet parent and the dog, for sure, that really exists.
Totally, and I think that's, I mean, just that phrase of like building a bond, that's a huge part of what we want to do, because you have that shared connection. And even if your dog doesn't have these extreme behavioral challenges, and even working through these exercises together, especially when you just adopted them, it's really a great way to kind of accelerate the relationship and build the trust.
And that's a big part of adopting, because animals come with stories and they can't talk to you, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a way to kind of just build that trust and say, this is your new chapter. And the beautiful thing about animals, I think that they differ from people in many ways, but one of the ways is that they're very resilient.
Yeah.
They are able to put things in the past and kind of just move forward.
Absolutely, yeah.
What advice would you give someone who wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like, what are the pitfalls, and then what is it that keeps you going? Because it's not all success. There's definitely failure, and there's low moments and high moments, and I think that's important for people to know.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think my biggest piece of advice would be, the goal is to learn quickly.
Okay.
Right, so it's, if you could spend 2 days doing something really hacky just to get it out, to get feedback, it's a lot more valuable than making something perfect and taking 2 months only to find out the same answer.
100%.
And so, for example, if we think back to the whole concept of automation that we talked about a few minutes ago, we launched Petcademy in September, and within maybe 3 days, I said, we will not be successful if we cannot automate this program because rescues are too busy. And so immediately the thought was, okay, well, humans use CRM systems in order to manage relationships. So do shelters have the same thing? And then get into that whole world of shelter management systems and then get to these answers. But it's just as good as you can be at releasing, learning, and doing everything incrementally.
Done is better than perfect, and not being afraid to be exposed or make a mistake. You have to be vulnerable and be willing to get that feedback.
Oh my gosh, and also, again, I mentioned the San Antonio Humane Society being an amazing partner to have the conversations with.
Right.
Having partners that you can go to for feedback and not being, to your point, like scared to have the conversations. That's how you learn. And even if they're not saying, oh, it's good or it's bad, like that's not really helpful, but really listening to what they're, like, what is your use case? Oh, you want this information. What are you going to do with this information? Just those, like, having the depth to the conversation puts you in a much better position to understand and then act on the information that you're being given. So conversations would be my piece of advice.
I completely agree. How about scaling? How do you see Petcademy scaling?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a team meeting tomorrow actually to talk about this. But yeah, so this is a good question. It ties well with the question before about what advice would you give. So the first version of Petcademy, the real goal has been to get feedback and prove our hypothesis that rescues and shelters will use it and that pet parents will find it valuable. And now that we're having these conversations with some of these shelter management providers, we're talking about a large set of dogs, right? Like, you can have hundreds of thousands, millions of dogs, hopefully. That's the goal. But in order to do that, what changes do we need to make in our infrastructure more than anything to support it? And so it's honestly, at this point, it's just very technical conversations about scaling. But I think at the end of the day, just getting back down to what is the vision for the company and what is your mission. And we'll start with that tomorrow in our meeting, just to make sure that the decisions that we're making really tie back to the why we started it in the first place and what we're looking to achieve.
The why is very important in a business. And I love that you have a hypothesis. I'm a professor, and we always have hypotheses and our research questions, and then, working on primary research. So have you done any focus groups, speaking of primary research? Or
Oh, we haven't done any focus groups yet.
Okay.
We've done just our rescues that are participating. So we have a dozen.
That's a big part of your research.
Yeah, so getting their feedback. And what I love is that nobody is shy to tell me. I've had, Bailey, this is too manual, this is not gonna work. I was like, that is great feedback.
That's what we want.
Yeah, that's what we want. So I've been leaning at this point very heavily on the rescue side for feedback, but I think once we nail a few more things down, looking
You're gonna want
much
the pet
more
parent side.
Yeah. So
well, you have enough friends with animals to. There's your focus group.
Right like, would you use this? I mean, just simple things people can do. Like we have all these lessons that pet parents can take, and so it's really important at a high level to know, do people think it's valuable, but also on a lesson by lesson basis, do they think it's valuable and why? So we've been trying to build in those feedback loops into each individual lesson. So we're getting a little bit of feedback, but I want a lot more. So we need to do some focus groups.
Well, you're built for entrepreneurship because you're sort of like fearless, and I think a lot of people are not made for that. They want more this is my job and this is what I do, and you're not that person. Once you solve something, you want the next challenge. It's how you come across anyway.
Well, thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
nice. Yeah, it's very nice.
So in terms of subscriptions, because I know you mentioned it's free, but is it just a certain period of time that's free? And then how does the subscription service work for Petcademy?
So right now, it's the first 30 days are free. So they have access, pet parents have access to all the information. They can ask as many questions of our dog trainers as they want. There's no limit. And what we'll be releasing later, hopefully later in the first half of this year, is the ability for pet parents to subscribe to ongoing relationships with particular trainers. So if they want to, for example, if you think about how you would work with a trainer in, we'll say, the real world, it would be for a prolonged period of time where you're building a relationship, they get to know the dog, and so the only difference with us is that it would be digitally. So we could do it with video or even chatting, so that we're exploring both avenues.
Did I see podcasts as well?
We have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I saw that on the website. Okay.
Yeah. Well, when I mentioned was School for the Dogs.
Okay.
So Annie, one of the owners of School for the Dogs, is a co-founder of Petcademy.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of integrate all of these podcasts at the right moments.
Right.
So yeah, it's been amazing from a content perspective. They have, I think she's done about 55 podcasts.
Wow.
It's amazing. So she has so much information.
And is that curated content free, or is that part of the subscription?
It's free. So it's free. So we have so much. The baseline content will always be free.
Okay.
It's just, and the questions, again, in that 30-day period will always be free. But it's just those longer relationships that we're looking that people
build.
can for people from like a revenue perspective, and also it's
Absolutely.
putting people in a position to have that relationship moving forward.
Right, and you hope they keep rescuing animals. I mean, they might be like crazy like me and have 6 dogs, right, and a cat. But that's the goal, right? That they have this go-to resource and they can consistently rely on it. And I think the digital aspect is huge, because we're even seeing with like Talkspace and some of these therapy apps, like, you know, we live in a very busy world, and why should we not get the resources we need, whether it's humans or people, because we can't, maybe it's unaffordable, because to have a physical trainer is very, very expensive. And maybe they just don't actually have the time to keep going to training sessions in a physical location. They're getting the content they need. They can do it in their home where the dog is most comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And that's really probably the best way to do it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And like to your point, the cost of traditional dog training can range to $150, $200 a session.
Wow.
And then the convenience factor of having to get to the place.
Yeah.
And again, to what you just said, the dog is most comfortable at home. So can we teach the dog and have these like beautiful learning moments in the home?
Exactly.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for everyone to feel more comfortable and save some money.
So you're from Canada.
I am.
Came to the States. You've been in New York, but you've been on the West Coast a lot too. So what have you been up to on the West Coast besides being an entrepreneur, which we know you are all the time?
Yeah, no. So I lived in New York for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got the opportunity to go out to San Francisco and work as a senior product manager at a company called Turo, which is the Airbnb for cars.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I took them up on the offer, and primarily because the company is very, very interesting and it has all these amazing growth opportunities. But from a learning perspective, I've worked so much of my career by myself that I want to be in an environment to learn.
Yes, and be in a team, collaborative environment.
Exactly. So I'm out there doing that. It's almost like my adult university.
Well, it's a great place to learn processes and incubate. And then you also have your business on the side. But I think that's great. And you're in the right place. San Francisco, Cupertino. I mean, that's where all the developers are. That's where all the technology that we get so lucky to have all around the world really comes out of there, like out of California.
Totally. Yeah, no, and I've met so many amazing people with all this advice that they can give. So it's real. I feel very, very lucky to have both things in terms of Turo and Petcademy. But my Petcademy team is all here in New York, and so I come back quite often.
But you're also the virtual girl, right? So with Zoom and Google Hangouts, you can make everything happen from
Google afar.
I do that as well. Yes.
And a willingness to get up early in the morning.
Right, I know, with time differences for you.
Yeah.
Are you still on New York time, or you've adjusted to California time?
I've adjusted, but my team is still here, so I'm like, we can do 6 o'clock in the morning calls, no problem.
Exactly.
But it's good times.
Anything else that I should have shared but didn't, or you would have liked me to have asked about Petcademy?
Let's see. I don't think so. I think we kind of covered it all.
Okay, great.
But cross your fingers for a lot of automation in the next 2 months, and then we can really ramp up the number of dogs that we can help with.
Right. And just before we close out, just talking about partners, I mean, you mentioned the San Antonio Humane Society, but how many partners do you have in the pipeline thus far?
Yeah, so we have We have 12 rescues and shelters that we're working with,
Okay.
but it's intentionally kept low
At this point.
at this point because
Yes.
we need to learn and build processes in order to scale.
Yes.
But we're having conversations with a couple of the shelter management
Okay.
software providers
Wow.
to be able to put in a program that we can kind of unleash to mass populations of dogs.
Great.
So hopefully that will happen in the next couple of months. And I'll keep you posted on that for sure.
How do you cultivate more relationships going forward?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I mean, sales, I suppose. No, so I will say that having been in the pet space for maybe 10 years now.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's 10 years.
Yes.
That's crazy.
You don't even look old enough. When you said you were in New York for like 16 years, it was like,
That's
what?
nice. Thank you. I'll pay you later. But yeah, I mean, I've been in the space for 10 years, so I've been
Yeah.
lucky enough to make a ton of connections.
Yes.
In
Right.
terms of corporate sponsor or corporate partnerships and rescues and shelters and just really
Yeah.
excited pet parents.
Yes.
So from the corporate perspective, I've just been reaching out, kind of, I would say very mindfully as well, because when I think about the role that Pet Academy should
Right.
play,
Yes.
it's, so I think about it as this: you have the shelter, animal gets adopted, then the world of the pet.
Yes.
We have the opportunity to kind of build a bridge
Right.
and make recommendations to pet parents.
Yes.
But want to take that responsibility very seriously. And
Right.
so when we think about the partners we want to work with, it's very much a function of, do they kind of embody the responsibility that
Yeah.
we've taken upon ourselves to
Right.
like help these pet parents navigate lives with their dogs.
Right.
And so that's a big part of who we reach out to and why.
That's incredible. And that's good. It's good to
yeah.
have your criteria and your standards, you
Yeah.
know, definitely as you scale. I just want to say thank you for coming to Celebrity Catwalk. I appreciate the support. I'm so excited to see the next iteration of what you're doing and all the good that you continue to put out in the world and helping pets, especially dogs,
Yeah.
stay in the homes that they deserve and belong in. So thank you. That was Bailey Schroeder. You can learn more about Pet Academy at
petcademy.org.
.org. So if you're looking to adopt or you already have a dog, definitely head over there to learn more about how you can keep your dog happy, well-trained, well-behaved, and help us keep more shelter pets in their homes. For Celebrity Catwalk, I'm Stephanie Matera. We'll see you next time.